own the fact that it's your show. Own the fact that it's what you want. Sure, your audience is super important, and hopefully they'll give you feedback on that, but it starts with what you want first.
Yeah.
Because if you're not happy with it, you're not going to keep doing it.
Podcast Junkies, episode 162. Welcome back. Apologies for the haphazard show schedule. It's been crazy. I will not lie to you. In the past month, I've been to Podfest. I've been to Traffic and Conversion. I've been to Social Media Marketing World. I've been to the Conscious Media Festival. And I've had 3 days of training with my coach in Redondo Beach, California. So needless to say, as of this recording, it's the first time I'm at my desk in a long time. And so I know I've been neglecting you guys, and that's not intentional, and I'm looking forward to getting back on track. I have several episodes in the can, as I alluded to earlier, and I'm going to get some intros recorded, so make sure those get back on schedule. Thank you so much for your patience, guys and gals. I truly, truly appreciate it. We've been getting a lot of really good feedback on our last episode with D.S. Moss, host of The Adventures of Memento Mori. What a fantastic conversation on the subject of what might seem like a macabre topic, death, but DS does such a classy job of talking about subjects that are not necessarily top of mind for most people. So I highly recommend that you check that episode out, and I think it'll lead you to check out some of his specific episodes on his show, which are great. If you are new, then you may not even know what it is I'm rambling about. It's because you've been adventurous enough to check us out. I like to interview meaningful and really great podcast hosts who are doing just amazing things with their shows. Some I knew, some I don't, some I find only weeks before, some I find on Twitter, or some I get to meet in person at a conference. And these are all fantastic ways for me to broaden my knowledge of what's happening in the podosphere. Again, another word that I just made up. But this week, again, another conversation related to my conference going. And we've talked about several guests that came on the show as a result of MAPCON, which is the Mid-Atlantic Podcasting Conference. And the host of that, or the creator of that conference, is none other than Super Joe Pardo. He is Super Joe. If you can only see him in action at these conferences, you'll know exactly why he gets that name. He is the host of The Business Podcast, one of the best names for a show, because it literally, talk about being super clear about what the show is about. It's called The Business Podcast. Love when podcasts have a URL that's SEO friendly like that and just tells people exactly what they're going to get. He's also the host of several books, and the latest is called Sales Won't Save Your Business. In this conversation, we talk about the origins of the conference, MAPCON, his knack for being an extremely, extremely generous host. I experienced it firsthand. I even got to sleep in one of his children's bunk beds. We talk about that a little bit. There's something that set this conference apart from other podcast conferences, and we delve into that a bit. Naturally, when I showed up and I saw the turntables in his living room, we had to have a conversation about DJing. So he talks about what drew him to DJing early on in his life. He started his podcast, The Dreamers Podcast, and he started to notice a common theme in his conversations, which we touch upon. And we really find out what it is that drives him to keep writing books, including his newest one. And what is it that's in his DNA that makes him so productive and such a good guy? I think anyone that meets him really comes back or leaves with a smile on their face, because he's just one of the good guys. And I'm really happy we got to have him on this conversation. This episode is brought to you by Podbean. Podbean has unlimited hosting for $9 a month. They've been really generous with the show. It's really easy to set up, and a lot of times people think the only thing they're going to do is set up their audio podcast. The other option that they have available is, if you are starting with video, as some of our clients are doing, by all means, not only should you mainly get your show on audio for Apple Podcasts, but you should also look, if you have the content already, getting it into a video podcast. And Podbean makes that super easy with their unlimited hosting. So as you pay one price, $29 to get your video podcast up. So I've been recommending all clients sign up with Podbean for the video hosting if they have that content as well. Now, make sure you stay to the end of the episode. We reveal this week's retention hashtag, where I can see who's been paying attention all the way to the end. But for now, enjoy my conversation with Super Joe. So, Super Joe Pardo, host of The Business Podcast featuring Super Joe Pardo. We finally got to make this happen, and we're speaking now on Podcast Junkies. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad that we were able to finally make this happen. I think we had to reschedule twice so far.
Yes.
I was concerned that we were going to wind up rescheduling this time, but
no, I saw you pinged me earlier.
But it did happen, and we are here live. So
this is the last recording of 2017. So we're finishing the year strong, you and I together. So it'll be a nice way to think about what the new year has brought us, and we can talk about what 2017 was like for you. And the other thing we're doing is an experiment with video. So this is the first time I'm actually consciously having the video recorded, and we'll see how it goes. And I'll release it, and we'll see what people think.
It's backwards, isn't it?
No, it says video.
Oh, in my camera, it's backwards.
Oh, okay, that's funny. So it's interesting because you and I knew of each other, for a couple years now, and I think I had seen MAPCON, and then this year I just made a conscious effort to visit all the conferences, the major conferences. There's so many to keep track of sometimes, and I was happy I did, and we got to spend a couple days together, which was pretty awesome. Yes,
we did. I think we had maybe had a brief interaction at 2015's podcast movement. Yep. Maybe a little bit. I know I saw a heck of a lot of your t-shirts around. And I was like, I need to know who this is. And of course I was palling around with Kim Trumbo, who is now Cameron. And, we were palling around like the whole weekend together. And I know she was was a huge Podcast Junkie fan. So I did get to know a little bit, but I feel like we might have interacted like in a group setting. I'm not positive though. Probably. I'm not positive, but I definitely saw a ton of your shirts around.
Yeah. I think that's one of the been interesting marketing thing that's worked for me, because I will admit I was inspired. I know that Michael O'Neill did it in 2013 when he went to New Media Expo, I think he said. And so I really liked the idea, and I started it in 2015 is when I started it, because I went to 2014's podcast movement, but in 2015 I said, I just made 50 shirts. I said, what the heck? I started walking around with them. I'm like, I'm not going to get rid of these. But I wanted to give them to my guests first. And so that's what I did. And then I realized, people just naturally gravitate towards t-shirts, especially free t-shirts. And I said, you know what? I'm going to have to keep doing this. So now it's a tradition, and I keep upping the order too, because I pay for them on my own. And so this past August was 100 t-shirts, and they obviously went pretty quickly, but I think it's nice. It's a nice way for me to give back to the community and start a conversation and just find some new fans as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're handing out a thing that says Podcast Junkie at a podcasters convention. I think it's a pretty easy sale, regardless of if they know of the brand or not, right?
Yeah, I think so, and I think your shirt is really nice too, the mic dropper shirt, and I think that's one I tend to wear on a regular basis, because I think people love shirts that are not too salesy or not too logos all over the place. And AWeber did something great with their shirt. They've got that mascot, the space guy and I think that was genius, because it's fun, it's quirky, and I think and obviously you got to get the material right, as you probably know with having ordered shirts in the past. It's that's this weird combination of like materials and size and fit. But when your shirt actually is made it to the top of the most worn now, because you seem to have gotten it right. I don't know how many iterations it took before you found the right combo.
So I have to thank Michael O'Neill for that, because in 2016 when he came to speak, I said, hey, what size shirt do you need? And he's like, well, is it one of these kinds of shirts? And I said, no. And he's like, oh, well, then don't bother getting me one because I won't wear it. And I said, oh, okay, that's not what I want to hear. How do we fix that? So we had a conversation about it, and yeah. So that's when like I decided to make the conscious decision to make a shirt that said something that podcasters would want to wear. Because the first one just says podcaster on it, and I should be wearing it, but it is like 17 degrees outside, and we have a heat pump here, so it's a bit cold in the house. So I'm wearing a WordPress shirt actually.
Okay.
So WordPress sweatshirt from WordCamp US 2016, I think it was.
I used to be wearing mine. I think I'm wearing the Strangers one from Leah Tao's podcast, Strangers.
Oh, that's awesome.
Radiotopia. So, but it is, well, it's relatively cold. I feel embarrassed to tell you how cold, what it is.
It's probably like 55 degrees, right?
Something like that. Yeah, and it gets colder in this office. So, but yeah, I'm from New York originally, so I can relate to the teens.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're working on getting a heater and like a gas heater installed. So so hopefully in the next couple of weeks we won't have to deal with this anymore. I've lived in this house since '92, and I've dealt with poor circulation and poor heating situation all my life, and I'm ready to upgrade this since we're probably not moving anytime soon. So anyway, getting back to podcasting, and t-shirts in particular. I wanted to create a t-shirt that people would want to wear, and that's why on I put the MAPCON. Well, it's not really a logo, but the letters MAPCON on the shoulder, because I want people to wear it proudly and for what it is, not for I went to this conference and all I got was a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Well, not all I got was a t-shirt, but I got a t-shirt. So like I already know what next year's shirt's going to say. I just don't know what it's going to look like. I've been kind of busy working on this fourth book and wrapping up the rest of the year and looking down the path of like where I'm going to be heading next. So I haven't had a chance to design it yet. I design all my own shirts. I'm not a graphic artist, like a Photoshop whiz or anything, but that's what Fiverr's for. I draw it on a piece of paper and I say, give me this.
Something like this.
More of a designer than a graphic artist, I would say. But I think it's, we've done other shirts too. If you go on my website, you can, I don't know if it's still there. I know it used to be there. I've designed a shirt that said Dreamer all in blocks, which I only have one of. I want to order some more, but I think I might take the design and get it in like that same type of t-shirt that we got the MAPCON shirts from.
Is there any reason why you don't stay with Mic Dropper? Because that might be your thing before someone else grabs it, and just have that year over year. Maybe do like Lipson does and just change the color.
Maybe. I mean, I don't want to give away the word because I don't want someone to go and take what my idea is for next year. And the Dreamer Blocks t-shirt is, I didn't draw it, but I designed it, and I had my brother-in-law, Matt. He's the one that went and drew it out for me by hand. But yeah, and maybe that is something. I don't know. But like I haven't given it enough thought yet because we're not to the new year yet when I start ramping up for MAPCON stuff. So it's possible. Maybe we'll do a different color shirt or something to that effect.
So talk a little bit about the origins of MAPCON, because I thought it was really interesting. I had a great time, and I know you're going to extend it out longer than it was this year, but I really love the community feel, and you did some interesting things to get people working together, which I thought were fun. So, but let's rewind a little bit and tell us like when you got the idea. And conferences are not easy. Conferences, are just organizing them and not losing your shirt on them is a prime concern for many. So I'm really interested to dive deep on this a little bit.
Yeah. So conferences for me, I've been around event planning since I was little. My family had a really big business, and one of the things my grandfather started back in the early 80s, like 81, 82, something to that effect, was running these vendor events where all the vendors would come in from that we dealt with, and there would be free food and all that for the attendees, which are all like our customer base, like a way to give back as a thank you and all that. And they'd do like raffle prizes and things like that. So, I grew up going to those and stealing all the swag from all the vendors. And, growing up, I did LAN parties, which stands for local area network parties. So, connecting a bunch of peers together, playing video games. The biggest one I helped was involved with was a 256 man LAN. So that was a pretty big deal down here in South Jersey. And then I put on a bunch of my own. I organized one rave that was pretty much a flop, but we had a bunch of people. We had a handful of people that showed up that could find the place, because apparently it was hard for people to find the place.
So secret. No one found it. Undisclosed location.
Apparently it was difficult. I don't know what I was thinking back then, but I was thinking was like, I want to create a party so I can DJ and have my friends come and DJ, and
I can
that's
relate.
what we did.
I can relate.
We did. Yes, you with the DJ background as well.
Yeah.
So I was, when it came to I went down to Florida, and I was down there for like a reunion event where it's like a whole bunch of people that get the whole Disney thing. And I left that for one day of the 4 days I was down there to go to a conference that Lou Mongello and Jared Easley is one of the minds behind Podcast Movement. And I just spent the whole day. I met a bunch of awesome people. I still am connected with all those people, and I talk to them, pretty regularly. And when I got back, I was sitting around watching Peyton Manning when he was still on the Broncos, and I'm sitting there on the couch, and I'm like, I wonder if there's anything in the area for conferences like that up here, and I didn't find anything. So I was like, well, let's go bigger than just Philly. Let's go and do like the whole Mid-Atlantic, and maybe we'll get people from outside of here. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We held a meetup up in New York, right outside of Times Square. A couple months later, like 3 months later, and then a few months after that, or actually like right after, I was like, all right, we're going to do a conference. We're going to do it here in South Jersey. I found a venue. There's a whole long backstory about how I got the first venue, which was at a school gymnasium. But I got that venue, and we held it, and it was like, I think it was like 35 or 40 people, 50 people, something like that. It was between 35 and 50 people showed up. And it was magical. People had a really great time. I've made some of the connections I made from that. I talked to some of those people very, very regularly, and I consider some of them very dear and close friends of mine now. So, the next year I was like, all right, let's get a hotel. Upgraded in 2016. Upgraded the amount of people. I think we had about 75 people that year registered, and then in 2017 we had just about 100 people registered, and it was a little less than 100 people show up. A lot of people, but here's the thing, even the first year we had people show up from Florida, Atlanta. It wasn't the Mid-Atlantic, and I even had people that were reaching out to me saying, am I allowed to come to this? I live in blah blah blah. And in the second year we had somebody come from LA. We had Rob Greenlee in the house from Spreaker.
Yep.
We had Mark Asquith come from the United Kingdom. So this is about where it's hosted, right? That's the whole thing. It's not about who can come. It's about where it's hosted. It's hosted here proudly in the Mid-Atlantic. And I love it. And I think the big thing I'm proud of, other than being able to bring a lot of people together, because like that's always my big thing is how do I bring a bunch of people together and have a good time and learn, is I like the fact that I keep the price as cheap as I possibly can, and I've been able to make a profit from that.
Good.
Right?
That's important.
It's not crazy expensive, and it's not over the top, and maybe it'll grow to that. I don't know. Right now is I'm worried about 2014. God, I'm worried about 2018, and I'm getting in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what are we doing for the fifth year?
Yeah.
Where's the 5-year anniversary going to be or do or look or grow, expand? And so it's not just about expanding and growing for this year, upcoming year, but for future the future years. And I have some great people. I would just want to shout out to Amy J from is this still Chasing Dreams? I think it's still Chasing. I don't no. I think it's Chasing Dream.
Doing this
boy,
in real time.
I am doing this in real time because I feel. No, it's still Chasing Dreams. Yeah. Oh, that's right. She changed her website name to it. I knew she had changed something, but I wasn't sure if it was just the website or if she had changed the name of the podcast. But Amy J does an amazing job of trying to keep me on task and on time and on schedule. and helping with the planning of the organization. Shout out to Jessica Kupferman from She Podcast. She's been a big help. Dave Jackson, from the School of Podcasting. Anthony Hayes from the Podcast Discovery. So I always want to say Discovery Channel, the Podcast Discovery Center. Almost said channel again. And I feel like I'm going to miss somebody.
It'll come back to you. You had such a,
and my wife for being super supportive of doing this thing that sounded kind of crazy and really small and nichey when we got started back in 2015. So yeah, and I'm sure there's other people out there too that I should be thanking. So I apologize in advance if I'm missing your name.
And Anthony is my bunk bed mate as well.
Yes. Oh, and Jeanette. Oh God, Jeanette Pellegrini. Doing our photography, offering up free headshots from a professional photographer with professional lenses, professional cameras at the event. So things like that, like that's those value added things that I really like to be able to offer to the people. And we included food too, because if I'm inviting you, then I'm the one paying for the food, and you're paying for the ticket and it's included, but my point being is I could easily just axe the food thing and just be like, yeah, you're that's just part of the cost now.
It was interesting. Yeah. I mean, we had a really good. I had a really good experience. It was so well organized. I love the fact that it was intimate, and the food break was nice because we were at these huge round tables, and I made it a point, at least at my table, I wanted everyone to talk about their show or about what they were planning, and a lot of people. Karen Yankovic was at that table, and a couple of other folks, and they mentioned like, "Oh, I'm glad I sat at your table because I got to know about all these other people's shows, and I realized I wasn't, you want to find opportunities for people to connect and make friends because there's so many introverts that go to these conferences and they just try to not realize, especially with a podcasting conference, that everyone is so open and so welcome, that they're losing an opportunity. And I think it's just a matter for them to get that slight nudge. And so I'm constantly on the lookout, especially at these smaller ones where I'm looking for people that are like not engaging. I'm like, come on, you got to pull them into the conversation, because we were all there once. And that's how I felt when I went to New Media Expo in 2014. I was just like, man, I'm fish out of water. It's so cool, but it'd be nice to have like a wingman or something here. And now it's much bigger, and the whole podcasting community I feel like is my family. But do you think that is something that you learned along the way, or you were taught? Because you seem to be like a very generous host, and I'm wondering where that comes from.
Definitely. I mean, from my family and growing up, like I said, if I'm inviting you out to dinner, I'm the one that's probably going to pay for it. In most cases, I try to do that whenever I can, but I just really like having people have a really great time, right? Like it's one of the things that, and as the conference gets bigger, and as all conferences get bigger, things sometimes get muddled down, right? Or muddled in general, muddled up. Okay, and trying to find ways to keep that same feel. Now, here's an example. Being able to have it at the conference, like we host it at the Holiday Inn and just outside of Philadelphia. Yeah. It's called the Philadelphia South Swedesboro Hotel. It's 20 minutes from the airport, which is really, not bad. I don't feel for the cost, so I can keep the cost down because that's a big goal of mine with the conference. But one of the things I love about that hotel is when you walk in, it's all there. So you see, like, there is no like, oh, you got to go down this hall and that hall and go down this elevator to go see where everybody's at. It's everybody's right there. So it creates that mixing pot of like everybody's sitting at the, at different chairs, like couches and things of that nature, all throughout the atrium. And it's spread out enough for people to go and like go and sit down and enjoy themselves. One of the things I learned from having it the first year at a gymnasium was it was raining outside. So nobody wanted to go outside. And if you were inside, it was really loud because people were speaking and you were kind of being rude. Okay. It's because there's nowhere to go hide or have a conversation. Yeah. So hitting that mark, I think, is really, really important for me. And I personally like it when I can get away, because a lot of times, I don't go to see the speakers. I go to meet people because they're interested in the same thing, right? It's the honey pot. You bring everybody to one spot that has it. And one of the great things about going to something that's as specific as like a podcast conference is everybody has a podcast or is going to be doing one, right? Like New Media Expo, like you'd have to be like, oh, so what do you do? Who are you? And you might end up, I don't want to say wasting your time with somebody, but you're going to not be investing the time with the person that is involved with the thing that you're there, you are there for.
Yeah.
So it's trying to take that, trying to speed up that process for people, I think is really, really important. And also I want to put an emphasis on community building and creativity. So by those two things, it makes us very different than a lot of these other conferences, whether it's Podcast Movement or DC Podfest, shout out to Jennifer. There's an emphasis there because I really think it's important for us to stay creative in the process of creating great content, because that's really what it comes down to. Having two people have a conversation could still be really boring. I mean, I've been part of really boring conversations in my life, and that's not entertaining, right? Like that's not what's going to keep me coming back as a listener, let alone probably many other people. So even the dry stuff is usually pretty entertaining, right? Like NPR has made a living out of being dry, but being really entertaining and engaging in that dryness.
But they know who their audience is as well, and they know that there's people who love that type of content, and a very educated demographic, and some of the subjects that they tackle are something that's right up their alley. So I think there's something for everyone. And I really love the fact that you focus on community, and you had a couple of like games or / exercises that were really, really fun that I hadn't seen elsewhere. So I liked how you're continuing to like test new things out.
Yeah. I mean, the second year we did it was like the dating game. We played the dating game, but with podcast coaches and a new up and coming podcaster. And, it could have went a lot better. I think it was maybe a little too loose for the time, but I learned a lot from that and took away from it that, like, okay, if we're going to do this again, it's gotta be a certain way. Now, the unfortunate but fortunate thing was we had so many people that wanted to speak this year that it wound up falling off the table for this past year. But it's something that I'd be interested in bringing back, because I feel like a lot of people got something out of it, even though, because it's basically a different way of doing a panel, right? So they're asking podcasting questions, and they're trying to be funny, and all that. And I think that maybe going forward, them having the questions ahead of time would have helped a lot, and having maybe 3 or 4 questions instead of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 questions to get to the answer, and it just taking a little bit too long and dragging out a little bit too long, because people have to think about what their answer is going to be, how they're going to make it witty or funny or anything like that. And I don't want them to be rehearsed, but I think that it's important for them to have the opportunity to see the questions, because there's some of them are kind of technical, and to come up with funny answers for being technical is not always easy on the fly.
And then this year we had the contest to create a podcast on the fly within, I forgot how much time we had. I think we had 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah. So that started in the first year. If you go back to the photo gallery, you can actually see the winning one from the first year, then the second one and the third one. And I wanted something that enabled you to have that creativity come out in such a quick way. And the other important thing, to get back to the community piece, get up out of your seat and go talk to like 3 other people that you probably only maybe talked to a little bit or not at all.
Yeah.
So it gave you that blender time to blend with other people and to learn and get something out of it. And I already have next year planned as to what the next spin on that exercise will be.
Okay.
And I think it was also, one of the things I had to learn for your listeners is, the amount of feedback that you get is really crucial to making it better.
Yeah.
But more so than that, if you give yourself the opportunity to have that conversation with the people that gave you negative feedback, you're going to be able to make them not only a fan, but learn what you can do better, even deeper than just like what their 1 or 2 word answer of like, oh, this sucked, or I didn't get this, or anything like that. And I've had that happen. I've had to have that conversation, and I thought it was going to be a lot more difficult than it was. But what I learned was I didn't do a good enough job explaining and setting the expectation, and that's, coming out of it like, okay, that's what I need to do better next year, and continue to grow in that regard.
I think what's important with those, after you keep iterating, you keep trying new things, but to your point, it's good to have ask questions that are detailed, so you're getting the answers that allow you to change. Because a lot of times in these surveys, they ask these just open-ended questions. On a scale of 1 to 5, how did we do? And if you're diving deep on specific things that you tried, I think you're going to be able to tweak them and make them better and better as the years progress.
The other thing was I asked for people to put their contact information in, because I wanted to reach out to them, because I wanted to find out, like, to ask the questions to find out, like, how can I do this better? What can I do better, and how can I do it better? And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I have those conversations. And I've been told that, like, well, I wasn't prepared for you to ask that.
Okay.
Like, it was odd that you would ask for feedback. I gave negative feedback, and then you're like, well, in order for me to give that negative feedback, I have to give you my name. I'm like, well, yeah, because I want to reach out, and I want to have a conversation about, because we can't get better if we just live in a bubble of everybody thought it was great. Well, yeah, everybody did, but there might have been 1 or 2 people that didn't. It's a different way of doing it, but the communication, which is always the dirty C word, is really important, I think, for you to be able to grow, especially with the conference where you have to try and take so many different inputs from different people.
Yeah.
So it's important. Don't discount it.
And you're gonna add another day next year?
Yes. So for next year, we are all day Friday, and all day Saturday. Friday morning is a boot camp that I'm putting on for podcasters that are just getting started. It's a 3-hour boot camp. Then we break for lunch, and then the conference starts at 1:00 on Friday. And on Saturday, it's all day. I don't think I have the actual times written down yet, but
that's okay. We'll get them in the show notes.
Yeah, it's pretty much going to be an all day event at that point.
Okay. And the dates, just for folks who are listening, want to block off their calendars?
Yes. So it is September 7th and 8th.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to think about it because it jumps every year.
Yeah. So let's change gears for a little bit. Can you talk a bit about your interest in music and DJing? You touched on the rave earlier, and just so I get a screenshot as well, my 1200s are in the back there.
Oh, nice. nice.
With my vinyl collection, and yours are over there to the left. So
yeah, like
yeah, beautiful. Your wall's a little bit more polished than my bookcase.
Running metals.
Very cool. Yeah, you ran as well. So I ran in high school. So it seems like we've got a lot of things in common. But how do you remember what drew you to DJing early on?
Yeah, so growing up, I listened to I really enjoyed music, but what I really enjoyed was at nighttime, like our local pop station in Philly would play like live from the club, right? And they were always playing these different versions of the songs. Now this was in when was this? Like 93, 94, 95. So by like 96, I had just had this I want to be a DJ, because like these songs are like the songs I'm hearing on the radio, but they're different. They're like with different beats and different things going on. Extended I want to know more about this. Yes. So I fell in love with that idea, and unfortunately for me, it would be another 7 years before I could meet the right people to make that happen, and I was able to have enough money to buy equipment. And a funny story about not the specific turntables that are behind me, but one of the other sets I have in storage up in the attic in a flight case is I bought my first. I went to the record store for the first time. I put the needle on the record. I didn't really had no idea what I was doing, because at that point I was DJing with CDs, and I was like, "Oh, it's the future," and all that stuff. Little did I know CDs were like very much on their way out. Even in 2004, 2005, it was already on its way out. But I put the needle on the record, and I turned the record player off, and I could still hear the music playing. And I said, Wow. Now, this is the first time I ever really interacted with a turntable before, so I really didn't know what I was touching, and I was like, this is incredible. I was like, so I bought 10 records. I left there, went to Guitar Center like 20 minutes away, bought my first turntable to add it to my CD deck and mixer and all that. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just mess with this until I get the money to do it. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. I actually went to a friend of mine and I said, hey, can I borrow like the $400 or whatever it was to go buy another turntable so I can do this. Yeah. And she lent it to me and I eventually paid her back not too long after that, but bought that second turntable, got some more records so I could mix between them, and it's funny, I went in only wanting trance music and ended up leaving all with house music. So it's funny how that works out. I mean, I have a pretty expansive collection from that time period and earlier at this point, but yeah, it's interesting. So much so that I don't want to keep buying records.
Well, first of all, it's an expensive habit, and then as I remember when I first got started, because I bought my first vinyl probably 86 maybe 86.
Oh, wow.
Because I started in high school, and back then you could get a 12-inch for like $4.99, and it was. But now, like as I was getting older and I was buying more, you'd get imports, and these imports would be like $12, and before you know it, like you're leaving the record store and you spent like at least $100, if not more, $150, and you have to be selective. But it's interesting what it does, Joe, is it makes I got really good at placing the needle on like 2 or 3 places on the record, and I'd be like, I knew right away if it was something like I wanted or not. And it's interesting because you develop this discerning ear because it costs you money. Like the last thing you want to do is buy something, you take it home, and you're like, man, just wasted $10 on that track. And now would just be like, okay, is this a good beat? Is this something I could mix in? Is this something people would dance to? Is this something that catches me? Because, you know a beat when you hear it within like literally 5 seconds. If it has you moving at that point, then it's a good sign that it's going to be good to mix in with your other stuff. So I don't know if you found that to be the case as well, that you just became more discerning because you had to.
I would spend my Friday nights at the record store for 2 to 3, 4 hours, spending my entire paycheck. I would even have I have my own like section of records behind the counter that I think I still want this. I'm not sure if I want this. Yeah. I think the most expensive single that I bought was a picture disc from Kylie Minogue. I think it was I want to say it was like $12 or $13. Okay. Or maybe it was more. It might have been more than that. And I think I only used it like once or twice.
Those picture discs are cool. Like I have one from Basement Jacks.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a couple of others that just I still love playing them. They're fun to whip out, and some of them are like blue vinyl and yellow, and it was pretty cool.
But yeah, I mean, I got a few of them.
Yeah, I eventually moved. I sort of skipped the whole CD phase and I went into the tractor phase. I think I had one side-by-side CD player with the 2 trays, and that I never had the CDJs. And then I just went straight to started learning tractor, and now I've got an extra laptop that just has tractor on it, and then you can play it and sync the tractor with the vinyl, so you get the touch of the vinyl. I've done that as well. So it's just been interesting. I actually, with the turntables here, I don't know how often you get to play, but with podcasting and everything I'm doing for my business, it's so funny. It's just literally like an arm's reach away, and I feel bad that I don't at least jam out on it.
It's literally an arm's reach away for me, and I haven't turned them on in probably it's probably been about 2 years at this point. Time has just been a precious resource that I have not spent, because what the thing is I don't know, I feel like there's so much work I would have to do to get back into it. The last thing I did was the Adventurtorium album, where I took Disney music, mashed up with hip hop instrumentals, and told the story of Pixar's Up.
Nice.
And so you actually kind of see it in the video. It's right behind me, broken out.
Make sure you send over a link for that as well when so we can get it to the show notes. I want people to be able to check it out if they want to.
Definitely, yeah. You can still order the CDs from me, or if you want the digital copy, there's I think it's on Gumroad for like $3 or something like that, $3-4.
And you said it was a Disney mashup?
Yeah, so it's the whole, it's like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that. There's a ton of tracks that go into it.
Did you send it to Lou Mongello?
I'm pretty sure I gave him a copy of it. Pretty sure. Yeah. I might be mistaken, but you can actually go if you go on my website and you go to like portfolio, scroll down. There's a whole music video for the first hour of it, where we actually took music video clips and the movie clips and all this stuff, and it all tells the story of Up, and you can kind of see that a lot better from the video. But it's basically Up the musical, told by different tracks. So it's pretty awesome. But that album, really changed things for me, because it opened my eyes to like wanting to do more projects. I was working on my family's business at the time, and it opened my eyes to wanting to do more stuff with, whether it was DJing or whatever, but I wanted to do something on my own that was more creative than what I was doing at the time. And it led me to podcasting, which I had already been listening to podcasts since like 2005. But it led me into doing podcast interviews for the release of the album, which led me into, maybe I should have my own podcast, and cue up, Dreamers podcast, as you can see right behind me, shortly after that. So, it really jump started my journey, which is ironic because it's Up. The whole movie is about the journey.
Yeah, it's true. So now that's a great segue. So talk about your first steps into the podcasting world and learning that whole aspect of like production, because I did music production too, because I was DJing and that lent itself to electronic music. And so when I started editing, I'm like, oh, this is not too bad. It's just voice. So I'm wondering if you could talk about your experience.
Yeah. So like when actually earlier than that, like 2 or 3 years before I started my podcast, there was some friends of mine from the Disney podcasting community. They were like, "Oh, you should have your own podcast. You can talk about Disney. You love it. You're going there like several times a year. You should totally have it." And I'm like, I don't know, I would get bored because it's Disney, and like I love Disney, absolutely. Yeah. But I, by myself, solo show about Disney. I don't live down there, so I can't just be like, "Hey, I popped in and saw this," or blah 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 blah. So I just kind of shelved the idea. And when I finally, like, after I did Adventurtorium, like I've had an IT background. I've worked on servers and computers and all kinds of things, networks, and I have the music background with the DJing and the editing, that I had never really edited that much audio until it came to Adventurtorium. So it was a natural fit for me to be like, oh, I can edit audio. I know about recording audio. I know about sound in general. I know how to go about putting my own website together, because I've been building websites since '96. The one thing I needed was my good friend Al Kessel, giving me just a couple of pointers on the things I needed to do, as far as like, okay, how do I get the feed? How do I make that happen? Yeah. Put the website together. And we launched 2 weeks after I had the idea on a plane. So I was on a plane ride to Disney with a friend of mine to run a race. More running. And I was like, hey, is there any other Disney shows, blah blah blah? And he was like, oh no, but you should listen to this other show, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never really thought about podcasting as an interview type show, in an interview case, because to me it was always roundtable, Disney. It was only Disney podcasts I was listening to, so Disney roundtable shows, and that's what I was trying to get on, like as a guest on those shows. And when I was like, wow, well, like I know a lot of people in like business and all, but I know a lot of people that are living their dreams. So that's when the plane landed. I registered the domain name, the Facebook page, and the Twitter handle before we got to the rental car. And 2 weeks later, I had my first show, and I just started recording the heck out of myself. I went from one show on launch week to 3 shows the next week, and the next week, and the next week. And then I think it was like by the 4th week, I was like, let's go for 5. So I went to 5 episodes a week. I was editing like crazy, well into the night. And now I don't edit at all, except like if there's something very specific I want to remove, I write the notes down as I'm recording, so I don't have to like go back and listen to the whole thing. And it takes me about, like, outside of whatever it takes to record, it takes me maybe 25 minutes to get the episode up, with all the show notes and everything plugged away, the bumpers in the episode, and it has saved my mind. It has saved my mind. It has helped save, hopefully my marriage, because I was spending so much time just doing that alone. And then eventually, doing 5 days a week, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to back down to 3 because I want to write a book. And I knew this. So like when I started the show, like I was using other people that are out there as a model of like, okay, so like I like speaking, doing presentations and stuff like that, which DJing helped get me there because I was really shy before that. Not really shy, but I wasn't getting up in front of people to speak or anything like that before that. I like writing. I don't like reading, but I do like writing. And I want to write a book. So the book aspect of it, and there was all these different slices. And then I was like, well, I can do a conference for the show, and like I'm going to do all this stuff. Now, what it ended up becoming was I've written 3 books. I'm working on my 4th. It's almost done. But actually, by the time I don't know when this goes live, but might be out by the time this goes live. And I have MAPCON, which I didn't think that was going to be a thing. I thought it was going to be based around my show.
Yeah.
For as far as a conference goes, and I do speaking now, and it's not just speaking on the Dreamers podcast because the show has evolved since September of 2017. I changed it over to the Business Podcast because we were pretty much only talking about business anyway at that point. It was all people who were, the idea was like business lessons from those who live their dreams.
Yeah.
So and that helped a lot getting that branding right, but it wasn't perfect, right? Like it helped people make the connection to where I wanted them to go, but it wasn't perfect. And now it's the Business Podcast, and we actually since the show's launched, I've done a lot of different types of series on the show, from solo episodes to having guests on the show that aren't being interviewed. We're just talking about a topic, to having a pre-show where me and my boy Matt, we would talk for sometimes upwards of an hour to an hour and a half before the interview even started. So I have like one episode that's like, I think it's like close to 3 hours because our pre-show took so long to go through all the different topics that were going on with that week before we even got there. So I think the important thing, and like I said, not editing now, is to own the fact that it's your show, own the fact that it's what you want. Sure, your audience is super important, and hopefully they'll give you feedback on that, but it starts with what you want first. Because if you're not happy with it, you're not going to keep doing it. And with that said, there's been plenty of times where I'm like, man, I feel like I should just like move on to a different type of show, and I have like a whole Evernote note of all different types of shows that I would be like, man, this would be really cool if I could do this, but but I don't want to give up what I've already created either, right? So it's important to keep things in perspective. And with that said, I've also added video, right? Like I've done over 100 business lesson videos, and once this book gets wrapped up, I plan on going back and start cranking those back out again. So being unafraid to just keep trying different things and reinventing, and now I just launched a new series on the show, on the podcast, where I have a guest who is a business owner. They're anonymous. We don't talk about their name or their business or anything or their business name, where they're from, type of thing, but we talk about their business problem. So it strips that ego away, and it strips all these things away. It's like, look, let's just like, you don't have to advertise the episode. I'll do that. I'll take on that, getting it out there. Once we figure out like what's your topic, what's the thing that you're struggling with, and then I help them through that struggle. So it's basically a coaching session on a podcast, but it's anonymous, so we don't have to worry about the egos.
Well, that happened. I've seen that a lot, and it's something obviously every podcaster has ideas for a new podcast. And so I have one that I'm going to start for my business because we have a full service done for you podcasting company called Fullcast, but I don't. It's like it's the cobbler's kids have the worst shoes, right? So I'm like, hey, this is what I help my clients with. So I have Podcast Junkies, obviously, which has been an amazing networking tool for the past 3.5 years. But I think I want to hone in and really have like specific conversations with people who are using a podcast to grow their business, and so that'll be bringing clients on, and then just teaching But there's always room for improvement and room to try new things. I'm wondering with the Dreamers, if you can recall a memorable conversation or any that stand out for you.
I mean, I've gotten that question a lot. There's a lot of memorable ones. It'd be like picking a favorite kid. It's not something that you would want to
or just to change it a little bit. When you think about the memorable ones, is there a common theme that you hear that that is of the 5 or the 10 that stand out for you? Is there something that you can pick that's common across all of those?
There's many, many, many ones where after we got done the interview, they said to me, I feel like I just got back from a therapist session.
Okay.
And for me, that's a huge like gold star, right?
Yeah.
And it's an honor to be able to say that, to have that said to me. Because the other thing, before I wanted to be a DJ, I wanted to be a child psychologist when I was 6 years old to help other kids going through divorce like I was. So for me, like I'm not a big school guy, so I was like, I'm not going to go do all that schooling, but I've gotten to help kids and youth through so many other avenues because of the opportunity that I've took for myself to not only leave my family's business to go do it, but to start up a podcast and start writing books and putting myself out there and doing talks with youth, and even working at a nonprofit 4 days a week called HopeWorks that enables me to be able to work directly with youth and helping them through their issues. So you don't always see the path to what you think that you're going to want or do. When I was 6 years old, podcasting didn't exist yet. I mean, most people still didn't really even have computers. So it's just the thing is like, you don't know how you're going to get there until you go down that line and figure it out, and how it's all connected to the things that you love. Yeah. Just like DJing for you helped you understand the podcasting end of it so much easier, right? Editing audio and understanding what good audio sounds like.
Yeah.
I think that it's one of those things where it's like, when they come on the show, when they leave, I want them to feel like they've gotten that point of having a therapy session, whether it's for their business or for them, personally. Because to me, life and business are so interconnected.
Definitely.
And if one's out of whack, the other one's going to get out of whack pretty quick if it's not already, or if you just haven't acknowledged it or realized it yet.
You're in denial.
So. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's really easy to get in denial. You just have to not feel like there's a problem.
What drives you to keep producing the books? Because I know for a lot of people, if they get one book out in the course of their career, they feel like, woof, I finally get that albatross off my neck. But you keep going. So I'm wondering what's driving you, and what are you doing that's because you got to keep doing something different, right? You can't just do a variation of what you did before.
A great artist, and I'm sure you know who you might know who said this. I don't feel like it's me bringing it out. It's all coming through me, right? So, can you name the artist who said that?
Doesn't come to mind right now.
Okay. So, that was a very rough version of something that DJ Shadow said.
Okay.
On introducing, but no, really, I think that it's the drive to want to continue to push boundaries and do things different. And for me, like I thrive off of that. It's really important to me to not only produce things that interest me, because I want to stay engaged, right? Like I can get bored pretty easily. Yeah. So it's important for me to stay engaged. So it's important for me to produce things that are different. But if you look at my books, they're all up until this new book that's coming out, they're all designed for people like me who don't like to read, because I'm a slow reader, because I have to read every single word in the book to get it. So I'm a really slow reader, so it's not something I do an awful lot of. So there's lots of pictures, and it's really short and to the point.
Okay.
And so people have really appreciated the first 3 books that I've written. But those books are really pieces of art, because I've also done the artwork in all the books.
Nice.
So like I draw pictures for each chapter, with the exception of the 3rd book, I Self-Empower. But that came out of a dream from artwork of repetitive, like repetitive artwork.
No, what is that?
So if you see like the picture of like Marilyn Monroe, where it's like her in 3, 4, 6 different colors.
Yeah.
That's repetitive artwork, right? So out of that came, how do I do it with repetitive words? So that's like, I had a dream 20 minutes into trying to fall asleep. I woke up, wrote 60 or 70 self-affirmations. Nice. And then took that, and then the next morning wrote more and more and more until I got to over 160. And I was like, okay, let's do the book. And there's actually hidden messages in the pages because each page has its own character painted into the book using like the inverse colors. Okay. So it's like black text on white paper, but the inverse is the white text on black board, like background.
Yeah.
So I use that as a paintbrush to paint characters, and there's hidden messages in the book itself.
Very cool.
Like, yeah, it's more of an art piece than like a regular book.
Yeah, like a regular business book.
yeah. So and with the new book, I mean, I designed the cover. It's a little bit different, but it's probably more in the vein of like traditional business books, because I want people to be able to share it. So like my first 3 books, I didn't care because I'm like, I'm doing me. This is my man. These are really the books I should have came with out after the fact, but they came before the fact. So with this book, this is like the coming out book, and the new book is called Sales Won't Save Your Business. Focus on the top, and the top stands for team, offer, and process.
It's what's so great, Joe, is that you put so much of your heart and soul into these projects, and it shows, with what you did with the mix CD and what you're doing with the books. And I think so many people, when they think about a book, they think about, okay, what's the formula that's going to get me, or the shortcut, or the hack, or just some fill in the blank type stuff, so I can literally get this out. And then what's the Amazon bestseller marketing 101 hack to get on those lists? And they just really treat it like as a formula and something they just have to check off. And that's definitely not something that you're doing. And I love the fact that we picked video for this episode, because now we get to see the books. They're beautiful. They're so personal. I love them.
So, I really wanted to show the power of what you could do when you're not something, right? This is the first book. And this book has been featured on entrepreneur.com, foxnews.com, and Huffington Post.
Okay.
So this book, I really wanted to showcase, the fact that, hey, I'm not an artist, I'm not this thing, but I can throw down too, right?
Yeah,
and it's all in my own like Sharpie artwork, kind of like a graffiti type
Yeah, I was
style.
just thinking about graffiti when you said that. I was like, yeah, because I used to fancy myself a amateur graffiti artist, not even close to what I would see in the city, but that's fun too, that we share that passion.
So I think that, for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to be wildly different. And a lot of people really loved it. I think for me, the cover kind of turned people off, even though it was in the same vein. I mean, I've sold a couple thousand copies of it, and that's awesome. So for and the thing is, this was all in color. So I had to by hand, that's all done in color. So my hand cramped up a lot. So for the second one, I was like, you know what? Let's do a coloring book so you can color it in, because I ain't doing it this time. So I did the same type of style artwork, but it's designed. It has a double like meaning for that, right? So you can see like the cover is actually colored in with crayon. And the double meaning is like it allows you to get in that child frame of mind on what you wanted to be when you grew up, and how to dream big and win. And it's short. It's not a super thick book. It's a coloring book. It's interactive. And I think that's one of the things I really like about having these books where they're engaging in a slightly different way, right? Totally. So the third book, I Self-Empower, you see it's the third in the trilogy, the self-development trilogy. It's black, so it stands out differently from the other ones. And it's 160 self-affirmations. But like, this is the kind of, I don't know if you can read all that, but like, what does that say? I joke.
Yep. I am heard.
I am heard. So you'll see like there's different letters. Like this is a V.
Yeah.
So each page has its own character, and there's messages in the book, like as you flip through it, like kind of like a flip book.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So it reminds me a little bit of the mentality of like choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I might want to do a choose your own adventure at some point.
Next.
But with the new book, I wanted to make it so that, because I know I have a lot of great information and things for people to take, takeaways and things of that nature. And I really wanted something to be like, yo, like, you got to check out this book and be proud of it. Right. Cause like, I mean, when I gave people or people bought copies of this, they're like, oh yeah, I gave it to so-and-so and we passed it on or whatever. And I want people to take that to the next level, right? And be like, they're going to their chamber of commerce meeting and they're like, yo, you gotta check out this book, and feel proud, like, because it's got a cover that says, and I wish there was an easy way for me to show you the cover, but I'll send a copy of the cover over to you, so you can.
No, I think what you're showing on camera is great. It's so as I was getting ready for this call, I was like, man, there's so much to talk about with Joe. I was like, we're gonna have to we're gonna only skim the surface, because it's you're doing so many things, but I think it just speaks to the fact that I get the sense that you're naturally curious, and you're always trying new ways of doing things, because I think that's really what keeps you interested.
It is, because I would get bored very easily. So yeah, from shooting videos to making books, and it's funny, like some of the people I work with, they're like, I don't understand, you're an author that doesn't read books. And I'm like, well, so there's a reason for that. And I think this is really important for especially content creators. If you're a content creator, I think it's important for two things. One is to limit your intake of consumption.
Totally.
So that you're not diverting yourself too much, and the information isn't too repetitive. And then I also think that it's really important for you to step outside of your niche. So I watch YouTube. I watch actually probably more YouTube than I would care to admit. But what I'm watching for is the process, right? How are they going about making these videos? What's the story there? Those types of things where you dissect that for yourself to figure out how you can inject that methodology into what you already love and do. So I'm not trying to replicate what they do, but I'm trying to see what could I do to flavor. Because the other thing is when I'm watching videos, I'm not watching business lesson videos on YouTube. I'm watching tech because I love tech, right? So I'm watching tech tubers and things of that nature. And it's like, how do I take what they're doing and inject that kind of stuff into my audience, to my audience, which is a very vastly different audience for sure.
Well, a couple of questions as we wrap up, because we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I'm curious, what's something you've changed your mind about recently?
Something that I've changed my mind about. How recent is recent?
Anytime. It could be it could be something that changed about years ago, or just and it doesn't have to be anything specific to podcasting. It could just be something in life, where you thought something was one way and then something or somebody gave you a different perspective on it.
I think the big one for me would probably be having kids, or having a kid, and now soon to be a second kid in February. It's not that I don't love kids. I absolutely love kids. I mean, I write books that can be used by kids, right?
You're a kid at heart.
A big old kid at heart. So, but I think I had a lot of reservation about it, because I felt at the time that I wasn't, not that I wasn't ready, but that where I was in life wasn't ready. I didn't have my business yet. I didn't have some of the things that I wanted out of life. And even though when we decided to have Ava, I was only, I guess, a year and a half into this process of starting a business and trying to even figure out what the business was. Part of having the Dreamers podcast was, what is it that I want to do? I never really thought about it. I mean, I love DJing, but the odds of me becoming some big time DJ are pretty slim, right? So, especially in the time where sharing anything online was getting you flagged everywhere, and still kind of is. So it's you can't share mashups. You can't do how are you supposed to get the stuff out there unless I become a producer? Not enough instant gratification there for me. So I avoid that. But but having the thought to be yes, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be great, and it's fun. And I mean, I have my cameras right here. Oh, there goes Ava right there. And I was going to say I could see her in the theater room next to us, but she just walked right by the door. because we're in video, I have an open door policy.
Okay. Yeah, open
it's always
open portal policy.
Yes.
What's the one most misunderstood thing about you? Interestingly enough, these are the first time I ask these questions on video, because I'm like, oh, it's audio, we'll just cut it out. So
no, you don't need to cut it out. No editing. Stop the editing.
No, we're not going to edit.
Stop the madness.
Hashtag stop the editing.
Yes, please.
Uncut, hashtag podcast uncut. We should start that hashtag.
What? Okay, so the question is what?
Yeah,
what's one thing that people misunderstand about me?
Yeah, and I know it's hard sometimes to kind of think about, to get into other people's minds, but sometimes, you find it out when people are like, oh, I thought you were like this, or I thought this, or, I didn't know you were like this, or that's usually, you're like, wow, I didn't realize people thought that.
I think so for people that don't know me that well, I think that the level that I care, I genuinely really, really care about other people. I care about experience. Like, to me, people are the most important thing, right? So like, me and my wife could go somewhere, but the most important thing to me is that I got to meet 3 people while I was there, and like, I learned more about Canada because they were Canadians and they happened to be visiting. Like, that to me is the thing that, like, those, because it's those stories that people will tell you and you can listen and learn. Like, those are things that, like, I'm using them as lessons so that I don't have to go and necessarily go and live that lesson myself. Right. I can see from those experiences and plug them in and see how they adapt. But like, yeah, genuinely caring about what other people do or think or feel, and how much, to what level I can help and be of help. I think that's one thing. Hold on, Melissa. What's one thing that you think that people misunderstand about me?
We get audience participation now too. This is great.
That I'm cocky. So so with that said, you gotta love yourself more than anybody else, right? Yeah. Because no one should love you as much as you gotta love you, because no one's gonna do it for you to that level that you really need. So yeah, there are people that think that I'm cocky or whatever, but I think that also goes with caring so much about what experiences that I can help create for other people. So, but I think to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, I love Kanye West, and he loves himself more than anybody on this planet. So, but I think there's a lot of things there that you really have to love yourself. I don't think it's cocky. I think it's confidence, and sometimes you got to be willing to fake that confidence, even if you're not totally sure that that's going to be what happens.
Yeah, it's a start. It gets you out of your shell, and I think eventually you modify it to who you are and to your personality, and that's what you've done, I think, because you're such an open-hearted person, because you genuinely care, and from the experiences that I've had with you, both online and both in person at the conference, I can definitely vouch for you for you as a human being.
Thank you. And that was my wife, for anybody who didn't know.
We'll put her in the credits as well. Well, Joe, the hour's flown by. I'm glad we finally were able to reschedule a couple of times and make this happen. I'm glad you're game for new experiments. So this is going to be the first video production of podcast.
I'm happy to be on that pioneer here.
Podcast Junkies.
Just don't hit me with the arrows in the back. That's the only thing.
No, never. So where's the best place for folks to track you down?
All right, so we got superjoepardo.com. That's PARDO, but if you go to PARTO.com, it doesn't matter, it goes to the same place, because that's what you should be doing with your websites when you have names that people don't know how to spell. Or you could go to MidAtlanticPodcast.com, MidAtlanticPodcastConference.com, whatever. You can get there from my site too. If you go under portfolio, there's conferences under there, because I do run 2 conferences, though I think one's going to be on hiatus this year, not MAPCON. Okay. But yeah, so you can get to both of those right there. And there's my social medias right up top. You can contact me. Please reach out if you have any questions or anything I can help you with. I might not be the fastest to get back right this moment, but maybe by the time this goes live, my book will be out and I'll be able to crank out some emails.
I'm sure
and if your email's long, it takes me longer to read it. So just, if you didn't pick up on that earlier, so shorter emails would be awesome.
There's a thing called 3-line emails or something like that. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's like a thing, and people put it in the email signature, and you have to commit to only keeping your emails to 3 lines, which is interesting because you respect other people's time. So, well, thanks so much. Wide-ranging conversation as always, and wishing both good things for both of us in 2018.
Absolutely. You too, Harry. Thank you so much again for having me on. I really do appreciate you and your time and your audience and the junkies that you have that listen to the show. Okay. They're junkies, right?
Yeah, they're podcast junkies technically.
Oh, podcast. Oh, okay.
Have a fantastic day. So thanks again to the Super Joe Pardo for coming on this show. Joe's such a nice guy. I think It's something that exudes is the word that comes to mind. Exudes generosity. I just like saying that word. I think you feel it too. Like I said, if you ever met him in person, you'd know right away. But I think you can get a sense from, you can almost hear the smile on his face, because he was smiling throughout this whole interview. And he's just such a nice guy. And I really love the fact that he just does everything with so much gusto, for lack of a better word. He's written all these books, and he does this conference. You should see him at these conferences. He's literally got the camera in one hand, taking a selfie while he's up there, and he's working the slides. I would argue that he's one of the toughest working guys in podcasting right now, and he's such a good guy as well. So, intro and outro music composed by Cedar and Soil, cedarsoil.com. Don't forget to support our sponsor, Podbean, podbean.com/Podcast Junkies. Tune in next week. We have a great conversation with someone I met through Twitter. Her name is Susie Buttress. She's the host of the Casual Birders podcast, and it's a podcast about bird watching, amateur bird watching. It was such a delight. As soon as I found out about the show, I listened to a couple, and it was very, very meditative. I was listening to them while I was working. Really interesting, and we had a great conversation, and we've maintained our conversation since then. She's based in the UK, and she's actually going to be making it out to Los Angeles, and hopefully taking part of the group from Los Angeles podcasters on a bird watching tour, which would be a lot of fun, and another hashtag because of my podcast story. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter to receive my weekly episode updates, podcastjunkies.com/8tools. If you made it this far, you're looking for the retention hashtag. That is hashtag SuperJoe, SuperJoe. And you can tag Joe at Super Joe Pardo. And of course, us at podcast_junkies. Thanks again for your patience, and thanks again for your ongoing support. Make sure you spread the word, spread the bird. That's actually relevant right now. Spread the word about our show, and tell one new person this week about Podcast Junkies. Have a fantastic week, guys.